Planning board meeting tonight on June 2nd. We'll come to order right at 7 o'clock. We do not have any things that are not going to be on the agenda, so everything will be on the agenda. Just starting the meeting, I just want to make a few general comments. First, I want to thank Gene Enright for all your help during this interim period between planners. You did yeoman's duty here, and you did a bang-up job at town meeting, so congratulations. I really appreciate that, and I think we all do as a board. So it's sometimes unfortunate you don't get enough recognition for what you do, but job well done. So. And then I'd also like to welcome our new planner who was at town meeting where I wasn't, but Christine Cheatham, welcome. We will not drive you crazy, we welcome you to the board, and hopefully we'll have many good projects to keep you occupied over the coming years. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so with no further ado, let's get on with the agenda. The first item is a lot release for 75 Great Pond Road, the Glades. Christine, can you give us the short story on what happened here and what we should do?
I said, as far as I can tell, Tom Zarico is here to represent the project. He's requesting a release of lots 1 through 5 and to establish a bond for the roadway construction. In your packet, in your envelope today on your desk, you have a letter from the DPW recommending the bond amount that came in yesterday, so it did not go out in the packets on Friday. When I researched the decision that you guys approved, there are a couple of things that you may want to consider. One of them is that Section 17 asks you to finalize the decision regarding the cul-de-sac, whether or not you need an island in it or not. It mentions stormwater management operations, and I think Tom is willing to speak to those comments. And again, in my memo, I listed the engineering, gave you the amount today. I think it's $33,000.
Okay, so we're okay. Are you okay with that? With that amount of the bond?
I think Tom's going to address the cul-de-sac issue, the operations and management, and stormwater.
And are you okay with the bond?
Gene has informed me that he has to submit a payment before we can process it.
No. Is the amount right?
Yeah.
Not,
I think so.
Established is correct, but the
Okay.
payment has not been made. So any
yeah, and we'll deal with the form of the bond too, so, okay.
Actually, John, could I ask a question about that? With regard to that bond amount, and we've posted and I think we've done this in the past, we posted a $5,000 site opening bond. Can we credit that? The site is open, we've done 80% of the work. The bond that's established by DPW, which I understand their process, is at least double what the remaining work is going to cost. Can we credit that $5,000 towards this bond amount, so that we don't have dual bonds? We've already got $35,000.
Is the road still open?
Is the road still open?
Is the road, it's a roadway opening bond, right? Or a street, what is it?
It's a site opening bond.
A site opening
Site
bond.
opening bond, yeah.
Okay.
The road is paved, there's no more cuts to be made in the street, there's no more disturbance to be made, in the existing streets.
Well, we'll address, why don't you go through your whole
Okay.
list and we'll address that. Yeah.
Okay, with regard to the stormwater management or long-term maintenance, I mean, that's an item that was one of the special conditions. We had discussed that during the hearing process. Matt Egge, if you recall, when he was here, we were trying to work that through the different town departments, and that doesn't have a time specific, but we had agreed that we were going to establish that or define that maintenance plan prior to the first occupancy permit. It's in the special conditions. It isn't a condition that's subject to or precedent to any particular item as it was in the decision. So we had discussed that at that time. And what was the other item, Christine? It was the
Cul-de-sac?
Oh, the cul-de-sac. John, we decided, and we had discussed this, if you recall, during the hearing process. It was one of your particular topics, I think, at that time. I still think it's something that we should and can think about, but we decided that it wouldn't make sense to leave an island in any practical way during construction. I mean, the cul-de-sac is an 80-foot cul-de-sac. There's going to be vehicles, trucks, deliveries all over that. To have an island cut out of the middle of that, during the construction process probably doesn't make sense. So we've paved that as we would normally, and I think we should look at that at some point in time that you folks decide.
I certainly don't have a problem that you did that for now, but the issue is still open that
Oh, absolutely.
we'll have it. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's fine for now.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's significant during the home construction process, but during the site development process, we're still awaiting the arrival of the bridge. There has to be a crane out there for that. I mean, there's no way that cul-de-sac would have functioned well if it was left with an island at this point. Okay.
So, does anybody have any questions at all? Pete? Dave?
Nope.
No? Okay. So, I guess, what do people think about rolling the bonds together or keeping them separate?
Well, when they go for a release, they're gonna go for a release on the DPW stuff, and then the site opening bond to make sure we can review the island and the stormwater would get released as part of it then.
So,
We'll lose it. I think we should keep it separate and
keep it
clean.
separate, okay.
Because I think they wrote 0 for roadway, they wrote 0 for roadway excavation, they wrote 0. They didn't carry those numbers of the work you've already done.
That work's already done.
But they wrote 0 in the total balances.
Right.
So they didn't give you, they credited you those already.
Right. I mean, we usually, that's one of the reasons we don't bond at the outset in order to get lots released. We do
the-
as much work as possible, so
So
we
they-
don't need to bond.
Right, so they've already lessened the bond by the work that's already been done.
And we still have
So then you'd be
the,
giving, we'd be
cul-de-sac,
actually, yeah,
too.
we got the
still have to
cul-de-sac,
cover
yeah, we got the cul-de-sac and the stormwater maintenance condition.
Anybody else
giving you
have
a
a
credit for
strong
it, right?
opinion on this? So, sorry, I think we should keep the two bonds.
I needed to ask.
Would somebody like a motion to, let's see, it is to release the, release the lots 1 to 5 and establish a bond in proper form, I think, subject to review by the town planner. Are you going to give us a cash bond? What are you going to give us?
Yeah, cash bond. yeah.
Okay, good. So cash bond for that, yeah. So, anybody want to add to that?
Do you want to reference the bond amount? or
Oh, the
another-
bond, yeah, and the bond amount of $33,250, yeah.
I'll make a motion to release lots 1 through 5 and establish a bond in the amount of $33,250 to establish the roadway, for the roadway bond.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, good. Okay, next item is Redgate. Yipes. We ought to have a drum roll for this one. This is, I'm trying to think, who, have any?
None of us. This
None
predates
of
all
you?
us. Oh, Park, not the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
Release it.
But were any of you on the board when we were having the problems? Oh, geez. I almost wish Rowan were here to vote on this, so. I will say, I think once they finally got focused on it, they actually did a good job to fix it up, and I would presume there's no issues there, right?
No, when I read the language, and I cited it in your decision, it said, "These monies or the balance thereof," which has gone, they've released 15,000 and there's remaining 5, "will not be released until 3 years from the date of completion of slope construction or acceptance of the subdivision roadway by town meeting, whichever comes first. Town meeting accepted the roadway in May of 2013, and it's been 2 years since then. So, and it was substantial enough to, and you released the 15,000 in around 2012. So,
Okay, good. Would somebody like to make a motion in the matter of Redgate to release the remaining bond?
Move we release the remaining bond on Redgate Lane. There's no interest accumulated in that, is it?
Well, if
It's
there
just a-
is, it's the
yeah.
remaining bond, so, yeah.
The amount of $15,000.
5,000,
5,000?
5,000.
plus any accrued.
Okay, I'm sorry, I read that, yeah.
Second.
What's any?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Moving on, 602 Boxford Street, the preliminary public hearing. Let's see. Okay, Phil, it was so long ago, I forgot what happened, so refresh us again.
Oh, that's right, you were here for the first meeting, not for the second one, right?
Second one, yeah.
And you want, so I don't know if you want me to go through it again, or?
Just do the short story again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's on Boxford Street between Duncan Drive and Brookview Drive, so it's way on the end of Boxford Street. So it's Joyce Bradshaw's property. We did a proof plan with 7 lots that's shown here. And what we're proposing is this 7-lot cluster subdivision. And it would, out of the 18 acres, we'd be left with 12 acres of open space and lots built, minimum lot size is 25,000 square feet as required by zoning. Some of them are bigger. It's all going to be done with, country drainage with LID type design, similar to what Tom Zarico's project is. There'll be a stormwater management area in this right here. There's only one issue where we, as designed, we don't meet the requirements of the PRD, and that's this 50-foot, supposed to have a 50-foot non-disturbed zone here. Now, all of the property here is open space. If you look at it, the property line is here. This is all open space here for this project, Brookview. And were we to do a normal subdivision, this is where the septic systems would be because that's where the soils were good. Deep sands, a deeper water table. As we move up, generally, as we move in this direction, the water table came up a lot higher, which meant just a lot more expense on the systems. So one waiver we would need is to be allowed to build these systems within that 50
And
foot.
you're not talking about any structures, you're just talking
Just
about the work.
underground,
to-
right.
Yeah, and then it would basically be grass, right?
Yes.
So it would be open.
Yes, it would be open, but it wouldn't be treed.
Yeah.
But, this is woods over here.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the one area where we don't meet the rules.
Okay.
And we would ask for a waiver on that. We would bring water from Brookview along Boxford Street up here. They recently paved Boxford to about here, and they held off on paving this section so we could bring the water line up this summer. Okay, so that's
Okay.
important as well. So water and septic.
Which actually was one of my questions, is you're going to do the definitive?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
but we just wanted to
Yeah.
wait in case there was some drastic change as a result of this meeting.
And what was the waiver for street line? So
For what?
it says waiver for street line?
Yeah, I guess that shows 700 feet to here, but that's, I guess that is technically, but it's fairly common if you look at just everything that's around there. That's Duncan Drive, the dead end's right here in a wetland.
Yeah.
This is a long dead end street.
Yeah, it's a lot, I mean, we set, the planning board rules and regulations is at 500, but we do grant waivers. And in this case, it's shorter than it would be if it were conventional. The problem is out there, you can't go to the end of the property line and connect onto the next property line. So
Yeah, there's
it's,
no way to connect.
If we were going out 2,000 or 2,500 feet at this point, we might say that's crazy, but 600, 700 feet, I don't see that being a big issue. Anybody else with any questions, Pete? Yeah? Okay.
Put a draft decision in your packet for this one. The only other comment that you might want to add, I wrote as a condition, was that his revised plans for the definitive incorporate the comments from both, there's 2 letters from engineering, one on April 13th and one April 16th of this year, where they do make, and I believe you have copies of those.
Yeah.
So your definitive plans would want to incorporate some of those comments for engineering.
That's fine. I mean, it's interesting because I think, back 10, 15 years ago, when we had quite a few subdivisions in town, we had a lot of preliminaries, and sometimes they were done to get in, to get a zoning window. Now I think the preliminaries are done for the very purpose of which we intend to, for you to get some feedback from us without incurring a lot of cost. And so I think it's a sort of a better process going forward. There will be some things, I mean, I think we have to go one step deeper in terms of working with the Board of Health on the septic systems, although I'm sure in the end, that's going to be pretty clean, but we have to actually get a letter from them in our files that it's okay. We don't need the final designs, but we have to have assurance that, you know, the septic plans will work. So it's a few things like that, so.
I think the one question we had opened, that we had asked last week, were there any trails that would want to make sure connected from the open space with the other adjoining open space property?
Yeah, I don't know if there are trails or not out there, actual trails.
Could you flip it for just a quick second?
I recall something was said about there was a trail from the other, coming from the
People
left.
walk through here, but there's a lot of wetland up here, too.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
people
Kristen,
kinda
you might want to
I
talk to
think you can get
Jennifer.
around
I'll
through.
show this to Jennifer. I mean, I think it's probably something that, you know, we would address more deeply during the definitive.
Yeah, there will
and-
be access from Boxford Street all through the open space,
Yeah.
which stretches here. They can
Right,
walk
and
around here and
goes-
get to this other open space.
Well, that's right.
But there's
And
no
the
actual
other thing
trail.
is, what type of form do you want the open space to be? I know that's something more for the definitive, but,
Prefer to donate it to the town
okay,
rather than keep it.
okay.
Yeah.
So you might want to ask her that too, so.
You know, another reason for the prelim, I don't know if it's still in your rules, used to be the filing fees were less for the definitive if you filed the prelim.
It's actually not a bad idea. Which is actually something we should do sometime soon. Is Tom still here? No, Tom's not still here, but the planning board rules and regulations, we haven't adjusted them in a number of years, so maybe you could be our new consultant on that. So, okay, so it's not a public hearing, it is a meeting, a public meeting, but why don't we, if you have a preliminary decision, let us go through that right now and take a look at it. So everybody have it? I do like the binding nature one in this paragraph, because even though, you know, the preliminary indicates our direction, there may be things in the definitive that come up that cause us to go in a different direction, so. Can you add to the findings of fact, you know, a couple, you don't have to mention every single thing that we talked about, but I think a few of the items that have come up, like, you know, when we discussed, you know, alternative layouts and designs, and I think one of the things that you want to do, you want to mention that they showed a proof plan justifying 7 lots, and then maybe just a few of the things that we talked about, design alternatives for the definitive, even the, you know, the path and so forth, the open space. You don't have to do a lot, but I think it's, I think we should better document it in a little bit more detail.
So have you changed the name of on the plans from Autumn Woods or not?
Yes, it's,
So we should probably change on the plan.
Wellington Woods, and the whole application was under
Autumn Woods, okay.
So,
But is the plan title changed on the plan itself?
yes.
So then we can reference the new date on just the plan. and the new name under there.
And that thing about the
Wellington.
letter was changed.
So change on that one.
Yes.
The Duke, yes. Okay, anybody have any other comments? Things? Okay, hearing nothing, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan as amended? Or the decision as amended?
So move.
Okay, motion made. How about a second?
Second.
Okay, Laura with the second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Moving right along. Okay, the 1665 Great Pond Road. Okay. Kristen, can you kind of jog our memory about that one, or at least me? I kind of half remember.
I'm going to try and put this one up for you, just so they can see the site, if I have the right materials. But please feel free to start talking with them then. while I'm
Thank you,
trying.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Glenn Saber from Century Builders, and I am authorized representative to the owners of the property at 1665 Great Pond Road, and also at what we believe to be 1661 Great Pond Road, which Christine would like to refer to them as the lots, which is Lot 19 and Lot 12. This property was subdivided and the lots were created back in 1966. And it's been in the family-owned since then and continues to be, though it was transferred into a foundation, the Technical Training Foundation Trust. And at this point in time, the wish of the family is to develop the property so that they can put the proceeds into the trust.
Where is this again? There's,
Great Pond Road.
it's the last. The last house. The last one, that's what I thought. So, there's one house there now.
It's been scanned, brought down to the woods. And next door was a Form A lot, so it was 0 Great Pond Road, and we permitted it. And they received the watershed special permit to construct the house.
We approved construction of something that was on the existing foundation, if I remember.
Yes. This is,
Granted a special, a watershed special permit for the vacant lot.
that's the one that I'm showing them.
B is the vacant lot. And it's a 1 acre lot because it's an old lot. It's not a
Correct.
2 acre lot. Right?
Correct.
So refresh me, Gene, were you here when we did this? Because I'm trying to remember if there was anything very contentious about this, whether it was dicey from an engineering perspective.
It was not a vacant lot. It was a vacant lot. It was permitted for a single house on the vacant lot. Watershed special permit was received, I want to say, 2 years ago, and I believe they're here to ask for an extension of that, because it has not been constructed.
This is the vacant.
The vacant lot.
Yeah, and that's the one that we approved.
Yep.
The existing house, there's nothing other
Existing
than,
house, they were going to just really skin it and rebuild. I guess subsequent to Matt leaving, they received a demo permit. They actually now want to bring it down to the foundation, so that's part of tonight's discussion as well. So that the
and they want a
existing
waiver of no way.
The existing-
No way.
The existing house was not part of the original permit. It had nothing, they were independent of each other. They were actually going to sell that off. A bond has been placed on it, but no work has begun on the vacant lot. So tonight's discussion, as far as the waiver, is all new to the board. As far as I'm
Well,
aware.
so are we asking two things?
Different things,
Yeah, we're asking two separate things. We're asking one to extend a special permit on one lot and grant a waiver on the other lot. I mean, the fact that whether the thing is in a trust or anything like that, I don't care. It's not our business. And it's not relevant to anything that we look at. So do I have it right exactly what you want? You want an extension of the permit for the one lot and
I was thinking a waiver for the watershed permit on the existing structure, yes.
Okay.
there was a permit to raise granted on this property that I'm seeking a waiver for. I actually was hired to do the work back in last July of 2014. We brought it down to the studs, and then it sat because the structure, quite frankly, isn't sound. So we're looking at just bringing, there's studs there now, and it's been sitting there for almost a year, and all we want to do is bring it to the foundation. We're not changing the topography, we're not grading, we're not doing anything other than finishing the demo and rebuilding the structure that you see up on the board now. It resembles the exact structure that existed, only it's a little more modern. We're not changing the footprint of the foundation. We're not doing any excavation. So when you say no way, under your section 4.136, paragraph 8, of your bylaws, if the structure exists, which it does, if we're not expanding existing footprint, which we're not, if we're not disturbing existing topography.
Well, look, you are, okay? I
How
mean,
are we doing that, sir?
You're not going to do any grading to do this? Is the size of the house exactly the same size as the existing house?
going-
Literally, is the square footage exactly the same?
Yes, it is, and maybe a little smaller. We're not going any higher.
Well, you got to show us that. I'd be willing to list that, but you're not showing us any of that. You're not showing us any, there's no way you can do this without some grading. You got to bring trucks in, you got to, yeah.
Well, that's,
You know, is
the
there, you got to put
shrubs-
erosion control up, you got to go to the Conservation Commission too.
pardon me?
You got to,
Just watershed, they call it a Concom, they said.
I don't know.
The demo permit that was in your notes that he's talking about was issued in May 5th of 2014. It was for demolition of the house and the landscaping, and it included a new landscape plan. It was signed off on by Conservation Commission as out of their jurisdiction, and as he said, the house has been taken down and the landscaping removed. It was not signed off by planning at the time. I'm new here, they came in, they brought it before me, we checked it out, and the things that concern you, it's already been done, it was signed off on, this building permit. So the question is,
To rebuild?
to demolish.
But the house is still
The foundation remains, he's come in to ask to build on the foundation.
But the house itself, it's been gutted, but the house structure is still there. It's not just the foundation.
Correct. There's studs
Well,
and
there-
rotted studs and an old roof.
There's studs, walls, roof, and all the window openings are open, to the
Wide open.
environment.
Correct.
So are they staying?
No, we want to get rid of all that old wood that's been open and exposed and rotted, get rid of it, and just finish the demo process, which is about a quarter of what the work which was already been done. We want to complete that so that we have a structure that's new to today's codes that just makes sense. That's all we're looking to do.
Unfortunately, the same thing, you have to bring it up to date for the watershed special permit too. You're rebuilding a new house, so it has to meet current watershed special permit requirements. So you may have to add stuff that you didn't have existing because you're raising the home.
Add stuff like what? I don't
You
understand.
might have stormwater management, we don't know yet, because this is all we have. There may be stormwater you might have to deal with now because you are raising the structure. You're not grandfathered anymore.
The foundation isn't moving.
It doesn't matter. I mean, that's what the watershed special permit, people build a deck, they have to go through a watershed special permit.
I thought that this also included that it was no expansion in size, but I don't recall for sure, but I thought I saw no expansion inside except for the addition of a deck.
The deck with
The permit was pulled, sir, and you're absolutely correct. And the permit was pulled, it was just because when the permit was pulled, the planner, because with the shuffling of planners, as you all know, for some reason or another, I was not involved, was not signed off, and Jerry caught that and said, well, when I was trying to pull a building permit, the permit to raise is already in place. And then everything came to a screeching halt. So I understand your concern, but I think this has already been discussed, and I
Well,
think
it's not been discussed here.
No, I
And this
understand
is our
that.
jurisdiction, so,
I understand that.
well,
But also, there's a provision under the bylaws, and you're saying it doesn't apply, but I beg to differ, because it's an existing structure. We're not
well, it's
increasing
not
the
an
size of
existing
it.
structure, it's not even there, and as Lynn said, if you change the slope or the roof line, where's the drainage gonna go? What type of dry wells are you gonna have? I mean, there's all the things that we normally look at. There's nothing here. All there is a picture of something. Remember, this is our water supply. This is right on the lake. This is not something that's, this is
fully aware
serious
of that, and
business.
I
So,
understand-
hey,
I understand
I
the sensitivity of it. When we did the demo, there's erosion control in place, and the provisions that are provided, I would need to meet with Christine on site and go over any further erosion control that would need to be.
Our expertise, that's where we have our outside consultant review it. It's a new home.
So may I ask the board, if we left that structure the way it is, are we all set with that?
I don't think we
No,
have enough
you're
information.
kind of caught in a little bit of a dilemma. We're going to ask you, we'll handle it quick, but we think you have to come in for a special permit
No matter what, at this point?
at this point, yeah.
Well, that only delays that project even further, so.
Well, how is that our problem? I don't
It's
mean to
not your
be
problem,
cynical,
sir.
but.
It's not. I don't know how it's
you
my
know.
problem, though, but
Yeah.
it's just, it's unfortunate that this has been signed off, and then we're in the middle of the
It
project,
was
and now,
to raise it, but not to rebuild it, correct?
well, no, I think it was an ongoing, there was a checklist there, just you can't have a permit to build until you finish the procedure to raise.
So, go ahead.
I mean, when it first came before us, it was to just tear it down, correct?
No, we know it never came before us.
It didn't come before us.
Go to planning. So the Form U took it
So
to
we've never
Road,
seen it?
It went to conservation. I was there May 14, it didn't come to me.
Oh, then it hasn't come before.
So let's break this thing into two pieces. I think we can make a decision on the extension of the watershed special permit for the other lot. And, I mean, I think we can extend it for a year. I don't know if anybody has any problems with it. I don't think anything's changed. It's still the same proposal, right?
Yes, they actually did file a bond, and it was going to begin, I don't know what happened, but the bond transferred back to who I believe is this trust for the homeowner. They took the bond back. So it's filed, by taking it back, they transferred it back to themselves from their partner. So the bond is in place, but no work has begun as far as I'm aware.
I do have a question. I'm not clear on, for that location, where are the no disturb zones relative to this? And I'm just not clear on the layout of that.
If you look on the plans that are before you, those are for Lot 12, that is now the vacant lot with the watershed permit in place that's due to expire. There are some no disturb markers on that plan.
Lot 12 is Lot B on this?
There's,
Lot
I
B.
think there's a 250 line.
Because I see a Lot B,
250
I
line.
don't see a 12.
It's this
But you'll see you should see two lines, one from the lake by the roadway, and then one from the right side of the paper. It comes at the property both ways.
If I may, my plan is highlighted. It may make it easier for you to understand it. This is lot 19, the one we're requesting the waiver on, the existing foundation. And that's the distance to the lake. This is the 100-foot buffer.
Well, it's 250 foot buffer.
No, this is the 100-foot buffer, so that's correct. I understand that.
Where's the 250?
Goes up to here. So,
Oh, so this is the 250 here.
Right.
Coming across.
Wetland.
No, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
that, from the lake.
yeah, so
This
that's
is the 250,
Yeah,
so this is inside.
250.
The 250,
if
but
it
that's
was
an
there,
existing
It's an
dwelling.
existing,
Right.
yeah.
And then the other lot that
It's
we're,
right here.
and so that's That's further, that's behind this
From the
one.
lake, but it has
closer
wetland
to
issues,
raised
so it's
pond.
within jurisdiction of conservation. There's an order of conditions that are out there, as well
Raised
as,
pond, feed, raised pond?
Yes.
Great,
Yeah.
Goes
So
in there.
that's within the
It goes in
250,
right here.
yes.
So for raised pond, which feeds into the lake, the no disturb zone is this line? Is that right?
there's a
250?
foot.
No, the 250's from the lake. It's only,
No,
it's only 100 from the tributary to
Got
the
it,
lake, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Then what is this arc here? It's
I
parallel to this.
think what it is it's meant to be to here. It goes to here. I think what happened is it was a drafting.
It's a 200 foot. They classify this as a river.
That goes that way.
Now, this is this line, right?
That line from there to there, I think, see, it looks to me that this thing is supposed to refer to this. Why they didn't just put it there? This, from there to there, I don't think,
Here's the legend, it's the 200 foot to the tributary.
I have no idea what this is.
And then this is a 325 non-discharge zone line here, too. There's a,
Wow.
Yeah, from that's from the lake, though. So they're in the non-discharge zone, but they've stayed away from the 250 from the structure, so. I mean, I'm okay with the fact that we've gone through this and we reviewed it pretty thoroughly originally, and we approved it. So if they had done work a year ago, or 9 months ago, or 3 months ago, we would be perfectly fine. Unless there was something, I don't remember this one as being particularly dicey or particularly difficult when it wasn't, the slope wasn't as bad as some of the other ones. And that have been, because remember, there's been,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are the two properties going to interrelate? Are they like it's family owning?
No,
the
they're separate lots.
They've
They're
always
owned by
been
the same.
separate lots.
Yes, since 1966.
So the
But if
lot,
they're owned by the same person, don't they merge? Is it really
it's
separate lots?
only,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that works more on the really small lots,
I don't
like the
think so.
10,000.
There was a variance, it's not a grandfather, there was a variance that was granted to create the two lots
What?
in 1966.
No, because that.
The assessor's map has them as Lot 12, which is the one that's vacant, and Lot 19, which is the one that has the foundation on it. So they're
Lot lines merge after
two
a certain-
different taxable lots.
They are, but I think, can you pass me, do we have the bylaw here?
Excuse me. My name's Michael Rosen, I'm an attorney. I took this before the Zoning Board of Appeals. The lot line and the variance that were created predated the adoption of the zoning, and in 1966, the way that the law read, once created, that's not revoked. They were created as a subdivision. They were split. Their plan was approved and recorded. The vote was approved, so that the fact that it was done, then the laws actually changed in the 1970s. If this had occurred after the 1970s, it would have remerged, but because this occurred in 1966, before 1974, it was allowed to stay, and we actually did, as an abundance of caution. I appeared with Bill McLeod, who was the engineer that did this work as well. We took it to zoning, and zoning, in fact, confirmed it. Building Inspector Jerry Brown, because I don't work for your client anymore.
I didn't hear you did this yourself in 1966.
No, I did not. I would have
I
been
was
two at the
worried for a
time, and I would have been,
second.
it would have been impressive if I had, but I don't represent him
So
anymore.
there
But
was
it
a
just,
there was a subdivision recorded?
Yes,
is what you're
yes, there
saying.
was.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
my question.
All right.
Because
Thank
if it's a
you.
person
You're
that
welcome.
No, you're right, that's
Yeah,
a
they
good
merge.
catch, I forgot. Yeah, because I know in small lots, but even in
They
larger
merge.
ones at some point, yeah, it reverts to the current zoning,
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's an okay lot, we approved it, so the question is, do we want to extend it for a year, so.
just one more question, and I apologize.
Yeah,
I
no,
wasn't here. So-
this is what we're here for.
My understanding of the geography is that the existing house is the house closer to Great Pond, and the vacant lot is more or less set in back of the existing house. How does the vacant lot that we're talking about now what's the access to Great Pond Road? Where is that driveway?
Have their own driveway.
And it goes to the east of the existing house?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Is the driveway constructed for the vacant lot?
No.
No, okay, so there's
Okay.
no access at this point.
Yeah.
It will be.
There will be, yeah.
And that must be fairly close to the reconstruction of the pumping station, that
At
driveway.
Ray's Pond?
No, the yeah, the pumping station at Ray's Pond, this driveway must be coming pretty close to where that pumping station is being rebuilt.
It is adjacent to it, I don't know the distance from it, but yes.
But that clearance is something that's been looked at and is adequate?
It was in your packets from your previous decision.
They're on separate lots.
You can
Right.
see the topo map there. You have it right there, yeah. And,
I mean, I remember the pumping station from the previous meeting. I'm just curious how they interact with each other. This access driveway and the reconstruction of the pumping
well,
station.
the pumping station's got to be further down. I mean, because this is, the driveway is on their property, obviously.
Right.
Not on anybody else's property. So it would have to be, it's got to be at least 100 feet away. Probably further than that. Yeah.
And over here, you can share that with them. I don't know if it shows the pump station for you or not.
So this is the existing pump station. It's being relocated, some distance over here. That's the vacant, this is the current house. I guess the driveway cuts down here. I guess, I mean, it's on their property.
Yeah,
But it would have had to be part of our
Christine, on the
consideration,
recorded
right?
plan, can you check the minutes? I thought that the Keystone check dams were supposed to be 20 feet on center, and these show 40 feet. I thought, it's been 2 years granted, but I thought we had changed that to 20 feet. So if you can check the minutes and decision on that one.
Check your recorded decision because it's got a book and page here.
Okay. But even if it's not a recorded decision, we might as well put it in the minutes. It may not have been changed. may
so
not have been
would
made.
you, I mean, Lynn, what's your pleasure? Would you rather we wait and look at this and see if there's anything in the original decision
I
that
just
we have
thought,
to
because there was a
amend?
pretty steep slope here, and we were concerned about runoff onto the road, and it was 40 feet. I thought this was the one that was supposed to be 20, that was supposed to be changed, and I thought we brought it up and had the decision amended.
You concerned about the roadway?
Yeah, there's Keystone check dams. Yeah.
See that. Specific site. Special conditions, hold on. It's a bond.
So I think, Lynn, what you're suggesting is that we should take a look at the decision that we made to see if it's still applicable given the current circumstances, and that what the plan reflects is what we approved.
Right.
This is- yeah. So,
And within the pumping station, the parking lot's right there.
yeah,
There's a question of this.
so
I think we need to,
Perhaps,
we need to revisit it.
perhaps we should go physically take a look, so.
Motion to continue?
To that point, do we have a photo of the existing structure?
Yeah.
I know right now we're talking about the vacant lot, but do we have a photo of that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a field card. That helps.
Meaning it is existing condition.
Yes.
So why don't we, I think the sentiment is that the request for the extension of the special permit will hold over to the next time, and we'll take a look at the decision, and anybody that has time, go out and take a walk out there and see if there's anything that we need to change.
The date of it is in July. We have one
July 2nd, 2013, it will expire on July 2nd, 2015.
We have one more meeting, so we'll be okay. So please, is everybody okay with that? I don't think we need to, well, why doesn't somebody make a motion that it's, what's that?
The waivers, because it still come before us. We're talking about the existing property right now?
Right now, you're talking about extending the permit for the vacant lot.
For the vacant lot.
Okay.
So, I don't think we need to make a motion, but it might be good to sort of have somebody express the intent of the board of what we're trying to do here. So, I think the intent is to go back and look at the prior decision and see if there's anything that we missed that might be relevant, given the circumstances that physically exist out there today, which I think is your point. Yeah.
We might want to look at the existing dwelling to see.
Well, let's do that. Let's keep them separate.
Two separate.
I understand, it's separate, but as long as we're making a trip.
On Lot
Well,
12,
yeah.
I make a motion that we continue it till next meeting, and we revisit the decision and make sure all the changes we made were adopted, and there's no new
Okay,
conditions.
good. So we'll do that in the form of a motion. Would somebody like to second that? All in favor?
Aye.
And on the new lot, I think the sentiment is that it should require a special permit, given it's a complete ground level reconstruction.
I'll make a motion that we deny a waiver of a watershed special permit for Lot 9 at 1665 Great Pond Road, or 1661 Great Pond Road, whatever address is.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay.
I assume as representative of the owner, you have no problem with us walking on the property?
Thank you.
Right, if it stops.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Let's see. Our next item is 1600 Osgood Street, special permit, Osgood Solar LLC. Okay, Mr. Leary, before you speak, Kristen or Jean, can you give us, from your perspective, an overview of this?
As on this case, I just want to pick up the other file for a second. Being new, being here for 3 weeks, I've been reading your files, and one of the things that I did review on this project was that the applicant has filed an appeal, as you know, with the building inspector's decision. That is scheduled to appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals on June 17th, which is middle of this month. And you've received correspondence from your town attorney about this project and the fact that it's, going through an appeal, and it's also before you. And I believe that correspondence had recommended that if he withdrew without prejudice, that would be okay?
I need to talk to him again, because I don't think he had the full context when the question was asked of him, so we may need to talk to him again, but fair enough. Yeah.
Procedurally, if the zoning board decides that the application is okay, if they withdraw without prejudice, they can resubmit the application the way they submitted it. If the zoning board gives them advice to apply some other way, they can still apply that way if they've withdrawn without prejudice. If their withdrawal is denied due to repetitive, the petition, they cannot come back before your board for this kind of a permit for 2 years. So, it's for the benefit of that client to withdraw. That way they have options open, and to let your zoning board take a look at your bylaw to determine if there is a way to permit this in your community. So that would be my recommendation, and that's what I saw in the language from your town council. But again, it's a new zoning. The Osgood has not been tested yet. This is a new project, so I sympathize with your group. You have to make a decision.
Right, and I think maybe we talk about the merits of this thing first, and what people think of this, presuming that it were in front of us in our jurisdiction, because we do have, it's a special permit, it is not as a right use. So I don't know what people think of this thing. Not a big fan.
I'm a big
Dave?
fan.
Dave?
I have no problems at all with the solar on top of the roof, because there's nothing else we're going to do with that.
It's not on the roof.
It's gonna be in the parking lot.
It's 5,500 rooftop mount, oh, I assumed that was on top of the building.
It's in the
Oh,
parking lot.
yeah, then I've got concerns with it. It really is denying any other use for that, isn't it? Could you put houses on that land?
I don't think that's,
Honestly, I think the issue of withdrawal is probably more pertinent before we open a hearing and actually start discussing the merits of the case. The withdrawal has been requested, and I think that one of the reasons for the withdrawal is the fact that this was noticed as a special permit, and in fact, it is not a special permit application, it is a plan approval application. Therefore, technically, what's before you
Well,
tonight.
you just introduced another variable which we'll have to check. I think the consensus of the board, with little exception, is that we're not big fans of the project on the merits, and we'd like to go back to town council and get clarification of his recommendation. So that's,
If that is your preference, then my suggestion is that we continue tonight's hearing to give you that opportunity.
that's what we'd like to do.
That would be acceptable.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question? When your next hearing is?
Well, this planning board would meet again before the zoning board of appeals
Yeah.
on June 16th.
Yeah.
So would you like to continue this until after the zoning meeting?
No, I want to
Until
do it
July?
before. We're
You'd
going to
like
make a decision about what we do at the next meeting. Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. As you go to town council and request the withdrawal, I would point out one thing. When you ask his opinion of whether or not he thinks it's appropriate to allow the withdrawal or not, under Massachusetts law, a withdrawal before public notice is absolutely allowed and the consent of the board is not required. A withdrawal after public notice requires the consent of the board.
What?
The hearing.
now we had that.
yeah, we have.
No, you do not. You have a notice of a public hearing for a special permit application. We do not have a special permit application. We have an application for a plan approval, which is one of the reasons we specifically asked to withdraw, is because the notice is defective. So technically, the notice for this hearing has not been posted, and therefore, one of our concerns is that we believe we have the right to withdraw without prejudice and without approval on the basis that, without...
I understand where you're
if I
going
could-
with this. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So we asked for plan approval, we didn't get plan approval, and one concern that we legitimately have is if you gave us our approval, but it was posted incorrectly, that our approval would be defective because it wasn't posted as a public hearing for plan approval. So with everything else aside, that was the impetus for actually asking for the withdrawal, is because we're still going to have to come back to you at the end of the day, no matter what, whether it's allowed as a use under zoning or not allowed, we still have to come for plan approval, which means we are going to be in front of this board, you are going to have jurisdiction over our application, we are going to have to present it to you, no matter what the ZBA says, no matter what anyone else says. At the end of the day, we have to come show you what we're building, and you as a board will have the full and fair opportunity to render your opinion on whether or not we've designed something that's appropriate for this district.
Hear what you said.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, okay. So I don't think we need to vote on anything here on this. We'll just carry it over to the next meeting, so. Okay,
Do you have a motion to continue?
we don't need to. We're going to continue it anyway, it just carries over. So, what's next? 1211 Osgood Street.
On 1211 Osgood, I believe the business person is here.
Okay, where's 1211?
McClay's.
Oh, McClay's, yeah. Or formerly
Formerly,
McClay's.
yeah.
So. Didn't we have the greatest, wait a second,
We just heard this,
you did?
yeah, a year ago.
This was, but it wasn't a pizza place, it was
Well, no,
The Chinese restaurant.
the
yeah.
Chinese restaurant.
which is still going forward. This is something new.
This is where Be Good is, or
First of all, good evening. My name's Harry Canellos. I am also the owner of 1211 Osgood Street. Baked has gone out of business, and I'm interested in possibly trying to put a roast beef and pizza place takeout, not based on a restaurant base, just for takeout only, with limited seating.
Okay. And what is the, I'm sorry, because
That's okay.
your request is simple, pretty
Right.
straightforward.
Yeah, I'm not
We're not trying to
looking-
give you a hard time, we're trying to figure out how it fits in
Right.
with the thing from last year.
Okay,
So-
last year, they're not even done yet. They're still working.
But that's
Okay,
still going forward,
They're
correct?
still going forward. They haven't opened yet.
That's still going
so it's
I
still
think they
going
have to
forward.
come- I think they
guess
still
the
have to
question
come-
is, we went through all sorts of gyrations about parking and adequate parking, and so I have no idea what the parking requirement is for this use as opposed to the existing use, and whether it'll exacerbate the situation or not, so.
It's right there. For Unit 1, you'll see bakery and retail. Gross floor area is 2,036 square feet. Parking spaces required 10, parking provided on site. I'm going to scroll up so you can see the piece, Unit 1, that he's looking to occupy. It's a bakery. People arrive, buy a piece of bread or loaf of bread, and they leave. They show up, buy pizza and roast beef, and they leave. It's the same kind of operation. It's got the same kind of parking requirements and the same kind of usage.
How many seats are you going to have in the restaurant?
I'm not asking for more than 20.
Okay, so it's not the same type of operation.
It's
The
not.
bake-
A restaurant
bake-
is
the
a
bake-
place where people sit down for maybe a half hour, 40 minutes, and their car stays parked. This is kind of
But
a,
he's having 20 seats, so it is a...
But I'm sorry to interject, but the bakery itself had 4 tables as well with seating inside.
How many seats?
I think there were probably at least 3 seats per table. I didn't count them before she went out of business, but there were 4 tables in the inside and 2 or 3 tables on the exterior as well. So I'm not looking to add anything extra. Asking for the same amount of parking, 10 spaces. I'm basing my business on 4 to 5 employees, more during the day and less employees at night. I'm basing that I'm going to have a better lunch than a dinner.
what will your hours be?
My hours will be from 10 to 9.
That was,
I think she
one-
was
that was
open
one of the
till
time
6.
periods that the
She was
bakery was
open till
closed.
5.
Right, and that was the number they used in their ratios, just so you know, saying that they'd have no business after 5 at the bakery, so we gave them a waiver for the restaurant that's going into 1, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem with these sorts of things is that you never know until you actually
No,
do it, whether you're
exactly.
going to have a problem or not. And I think to try to over-legislate some of these things would drive yourselves crazy. I'm really more and more inclined to think that the best solution is you try it out, and if there's a problem, you figure out how
We
to
can tailor
mitigate the
to it.
problem. And I don't know, let's just say hypothetically it does create a problem. What would you do?
I'd like to see if I could get a piece of land from next door, from the Barker estate. Jimmy, the previous owner, told me that there is a small strip that is in front of the Barker farm. I think it's about 12 or 15,000 square feet that the state owns, that Mr. Barker himself has first right to. If we did have a problem, I'd see if I could acquire that, or if I had to minus a table and make 15 seats out of 20 instead of 20 seats, I'd do that as well.
Could you park your employees someplace else so their cars weren't there?
There is some parking out back.
Well, that's sort of
That
counted
was
in it,
the
yeah.
issue we
Yeah.
had, was the neighbors. neighbors.
We had a
Yeah.
fair amount of neighbors at the last meeting because there was concerns. Right now, there was problems with trash. Are there any trash receptacles
There is, there's a
outside?
dumpster that's empty twice a week.
No, what about outside the back of the building?
There's nothing on the back of the
Okay,
building.
'cause
It's
that was
just
a problem,
driveway.
that they were keeping trash cans out there and trash piling up. And the second thing was...
Maybe the only thing is if when McClays was moving out and he
Well,
was...
no, okay, but yes, that's been remedied and there's not going to be any trash left outside of restaurant?
I go, actually, since I own the plaza room, 2-3 times a week, I do go by and,
And another thing
keep
is
an eye
there
on
was supposed
things.
to be underplantings done. Were those ever done?
under plantings, that is on the tie end of the restaurant. That's
No,
up-
it's along the whole backside. That's where
But that's up to the tie.
Well, no,
That was
you
in
won't-
that was in their decision with you.
But isn't the property owner responsible?
No, in the thing, it's up to them, up to the Thai restaurant that's building out.
Confused.
Okay.
Did you
The
buy
owner
the
of
whole
the
strip
property.
mall?
I did,
You bought the whole strip mall?
I did.
I think that the plantings were supposed to be done by the previous owner of the strip mall.
Yeah, it's by the owner of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the...
That's who
I
we
have to look, but I know I did see something somewhere that they were, because he
That might
actually,
have been a side deal, but you're responsible.
no, I think I
owning
saw
it.
something on paper.
But that's between the owner and them, not between the planning board and the owner of the property.
Okay, I will look into
The
that.
decision follows the property ownership.
Because I know on the backside, it's filled with pine trees. Can't see.
They're high, they're elevated.
They're also low to the ground. I mean, you can't,
Yeah.
I mean, when I drive by there, I mean, when I tell you the lowest branch is right here, I mean, I can't, what are you gonna put some flowers? It's not really gonna be a buffer.
Pete, what's your pleasure on this? What would you like to do? What would you like to see? Would you like us to look at this a little bit more? Are you ready to okay it, or I'm just...
I'm not clear on the interaction between this and the action we took earlier,
Yeah.
you know, especially with the difference in the hours, 5 to 9 p.m., right? That was part of the basis that we made the earlier decision on?
Jane?
The decision that was issued, I believe, last year for the Thai restaurant, it was conditioned that there be follow-up parking studies done at different increments. And I think the first one was going to be April because they had planned to open earlier than this. So whatever that condition was, if it was 6 months and then a year out, they were supposed to provide the board another parking analysis. Again, I'm just putting that out there. That hasn't been done at this point. But similar to what you said, you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens.
Parking study's going to
It
expire.
was conditioned in the other decision to do a follow-up analysis.
Well, the parking studies probably should have been pegged when so much time after the occupancy.
Right after occupancy, it
But
should have
I
been.
don't
but-
recall.
The occupancy, but it was,
Okay.
I think it was conditioned in April and again in the subsequent months, but
But they didn't do it,
That
right?
the
every
owners
building,
of the restaurant were up there. I recall the owner of the strip mall was up doing the talking.
Yeah.
And the Chinese, I think it was a Chinese Thai restaurant, would
Yeah.
come up and answer specific questions about the restaurant. But in terms of the promises and the commitments, we were dealing, I think, with the owner of the
Well,
strip
this
mall.
is always the, and Rick Nardella, who was on the board a long time with me, said, somebody will come up and promise anything, and they'll go, well, that's all very nice, but you could sell it to somebody else in 2 weeks. And that's what happened in this case.
No, but I mean, it's not a deal
Yeah.
between us and the restaurant. It's
No,
a deal
it's
between
a
us.
deal,
So the
yeah.
other plantings have to be.
So, Laura, what,
I mean, as
I
far
think they have
as,
to come before us and we have to look at it further.
I
mean,
feel like we need to do, okay, you
and
think
not-
we should
not-
do?
And I
Yeah.
get that you want to open a new
No,
restaurant,
as
but I
far
mean,
as my difference from her difference, I mean, she served sandwiches, she had dinner, she had pizza, she did catering.
most of that-
The only difference, I mean, I'm asking for 4 hours more of business.
I don't think that's the only difference. In all due respect, most of her inside, and I have been in there, was bakery cases. So there weren't a lot of tables at all. You walked in and it was a bakery case, then some pizza and stuff in the back. There wasn't hardly any room for tables.
There were 2 tables in front of the counter and the 2 tables in front of the windows.
Very
And
small.
also 2 tables
Tiny,
outside.
tiny.
Round tables, I didn't measure them.
Right, but I'm just saying, I think it's different. I'm not against the,
No,
I
but
just,
I mean, the thing is, I want to be fair in
Right, I
this
do.
case, that what do we need that we don't have? What information do we want to get that we don't
The
have yet?
parking is an issue.
Well, I
What
think-
they're talking about, seating is going to be a huge issue. And I think that the neighbors, once again,
Yeah.
need to get to have their say, right? I mean, there were a lot of neighbors here.
No, there were, and the question, I mean, I don't think that this use rises to a separate special permit.
We do a modification, because my concern is that our
Maybe we do a
parking.
modification of the
our park-
existing one
Our parking's going to
and notice
expire.
people, because that's the big thing. Is that I think your point is that the neighbors need to know about it.
There is another difference as far as what I'm doing with the other restaurant. There is a full liquor going into the other restaurant. I think that causes a big concern for the neighbors, as far as, liquor being served right next to their back door. And yeah.
For the
It was, they were
neighbors.
very concerned about parking on their streets, and that was, we know where the overflow's going to go. It can't go on to
So, we want to
125.
work with you, but what we'd like to do is maybe modify the existing special permit to accommodate this use. And we're really not trying to be difficult.
Okay.
It's funny, I have to tell you a story. None of you guys were on the board from the days where the infamous Arthur, do you
I've seen the file.
and this was across the street, somebody wanted to open, it was a roast beef place or a pizza place, and oh my gosh, and he was from some place, I forget where he was from, but he was used to the old culture where you basically took care of people. We go, no, you can't do that. And he wanted to put up a window, and we were arguing whether the pizza boxes would be big enough, and oh geez, we won't get into that level of detail with you, but,
Isn't this, the thing we're talking about modifying, wasn't it a modification of a special permit?
well, that's what I mean, we'll just
And
remodify
didn't the
it.
first special permit say you can't have a restaurant in the
restaurant,
place at
correct.
all?
That was a modification to a first one, said if the restaurant was to go in, they need to come back to the board.
Yeah.
So that one, there was since modified, so modification two.
So now we're at 2.
But that's okay. I mean, that's okay.
can modify it 20 times.
Yeah, so if you can work with us, we'll try to get you through quickly, but I think process, it'll be better for you in the long term because the people that live in the neighborhood will see up front what the issue is. And it's one of these things that's speak now or forever hold your peace, and I think you'll be better off in terms of dealing with them, so, yeah. Good. So if you could work with Kristen in terms of what you need to do, that would be great, so. Thank you. And, yeah. Okay, moving right along.
Can I ask
Yeah.
something? Not about this, but about thank you, the last one with the 2 lots that supposedly there was a subdivision filed in 1960. I think we need to verify that, and that in fact that this isn't one merged lot.
Okay.
I don't,
Satisfied, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
we were discussing, I think that
Okay.
needs to be verified.
yeah. Yeah.
Christine?
It's all in the building file, but we did that.
I'm
And I
just-
think we did that when we.
I'm sorry, I'm just very
Trust but
curious.
verify.
Yeah.
So, planning board membership and signature page, we got a new one of those to sign?
Well, yes and no. I have, your membership, I'm understanding that you've lost a member. Is that correct?
We're not sure. Has he
We're not
officially
sure, has he
resigned?
So-
officially
No, he's
resigned?
officially sent the memo, and the town manager's office asked me, and I haven't received it, so I think they're gonna contact Michael to see if he's officially resigned.
So the town manager's office is looking to see if he's officially resigned. And the question is out there, Peter, I hate to put you on the spot, but have they asked you if you would like to move from an associate to a full member?
We had
Or
a
not.
bit of a discussion on that.
Okay,
No, the town manager.
Oh, no.
Okay.
okay. So we're waiting for some phone calls and transitions on your membership. 2 of you are also set to expire June 30th of this year.
Including me, so.
I re-interviewed yesterday.
Oh, you did? I haven't gotten
Okay.
asked to interview, I don't know.
So
I guess I'm glad, hey, what can I say?
John, yeah, you better check in.
Yeah.
So Laura,
It was an
you,
email, it was
Yeah.
an email.
so you,
I assume I was accepted.
okay, so at least we know that
Who
you're
did you
in the
talk to? Who
process.
I had to
interviewed
go
you?
before Rosemary Smedili, the town manager, and Phil DeCollegiero.
Oh, there
It was
you
more
go.
of a gap fest, but
Yeah.
it was okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So when we, hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a better picture of the status of your membership. At that time, I can perhaps draft a letter for your signature page In the meanwhile, Jean will continue to sign anything that we need signed, because that's on record with the registry. I didn't want to send a letter out and then 2 weeks later have to send it again.
That's fine. Okay,
So,
good, we'll wait.
We're
And I
okay with
don't-
Jean being stuck doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Extra work,
yeah.
so.
Christine, along that line,
Yes.
I've always gone by the name Dave. My official name is David.
David, would you like that on the,
I don't particularly care, but I think you've got to have it consistent.
what would you
Right.
like? I'll clean it up now. What would you like, David?
Yeah.
To be formal? Thank you.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way.
Anybody else? Okay. So, more to come. I hope your interviews go
Yeah,
well.
I don't know, yeah.
And
Last item, 116 Great Pond Road.
yes, I believe at 116 Great Pond Road, there is an outstanding violation. And I just want to pull up the paperwork. I've spoken with the folks in the Conservation Office. They issued an enforcement order and are working towards resolution on that.
This is the one Country Club, or by Rolling Ridge Country Club Estates.
This is the cobblestone walkway that was hand-built.
No, this is right next to Brook School, where they clear cut all of the trees.
This
right
is
on the
right
walk.
back, but this is several years ago,
No,
right?
no, okay, no, this is last year.
I'll give you a couple of pictures here.
November.
Oh, yeah.
If you take a look at the picture, I think there was some clearing, I guess.
Oh, right, I remember,
And-
yeah, I remember, oh, yeah.
That
yeah,
one.
Now I remember, yeah.
And that
yeah.
one.
Right.
So what they've submitted as part of their enforcement order with Conservation Commission is a landscape plan. This one's not terribly, scientific, but it lists a lot of native vegetation. There's a footpath that carves through it, and Conservation has been going out there to monitor the placement and all that. So
We're making progress.
we're reporting back. I think it's
Yeah.
moving forward.
Okay, moving right
I think
along.
that's-
Let's see, minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 5th, 2015. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what our role is with respect to that plan.
Well, technically,
mean, we're the
my
special
personal
permitting.
opinion is, I see where you're going, is that I view the Conservation Commission as our agent in this case, because we really do have the primary jurisdiction, but they can help us in the mechanics of those things better than us. I mean, that's sort of just my practical
Yeah.
opinion. I mean, does that make sense?
It does make sense. So
Yeah.
part of my question here is that the clear cutting there involved somewhere between 12 and 18 mature trees, like this big around.
Yeah.
And if the plantings are native bushes, it's not, I mean, I'm not the Conservation Commission, obviously, but I just have a question. How does that address the violations which were removing both a large number of mature growth, large trees, as well as sort of shrubbery? And if the plan is only replacing with shrubbery, and I'm not sure what it is because I haven't seen it.
All right, no, I'll read it to you. It's not trees, that's what you're getting at. We have waterberry holly, we have low bush blueberry, azaleas, dogwood, snowberry, ferns, and antifolia or something. So it's not trees, it's shrubs.
It's all good native stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, I think in this case, some of those trees may have been damaged. I mean, I think it was a legitimate sort of thing. The problem ends up being is, I think once you tear down trees, and I'm a bigger tree hugger than just about anybody, but it's like, is the best thing for the lake put more trees up, or is it something else? I honestly don't know the answer to that. It's worth asking the Conservation Commission about what's a reasonable remediation plan, and, is there any reason why they didn't put trees in the plan? I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask. In some cases, if it were egregious, I would just sort of say, no, you're going to put trees back in, you're going to replant trees. But I'm not sure this was particularly egregious. I mean,
So why didn't they come before us with their plan rather than
Because I thought when they
Being
were
monitored.
here, I thought that's what they said they would do.
do?
No, the meeting concluded with the landscaper was here and the owners, and at the conclusion, it was just to work with conservation, to submit the plan to conservation. I actually followed up with them in April. Their enforcement order, I think, goes through June or July, And so that's when Jennifer had followed up with it as well. So I did, once Jennifer had the plan and approved it, I thought it was okay. But we can certainly ask that
Well,
question.
I don't want to be in the position of looking like we're second-guessing conservation, because this is something they focus
I
on.
think it's a fair question to ask them. I don't think you can ask her why, I mean, because there may be something we just don't know that might be, from a water quality perspective, maybe low bushes and native plantings are better.
We should know what's better, you're right, Peter.
Yeah.
Because we should know which is, because some things we have purview over where the conservation doesn't, when it
Yeah.
comes to the lake.
Yeah, I mean, technically, in this case, I think we do and they don't, but
Right.
hey,
So,
Well-
John, here's part of the reason for my concern. Part of it is, I think, the substantive question of what's better for the watershed and the lake. Part of it is, at least a concern I have, that if one lakeshore owner sees another owner clear cut and sees little or no consequence, what effect does it have? And I have been back out on the lake, and there is a property on the opposite shore that this clear cutting occurred in November. The property across the shore has now done what certainly appears to be clear cutting that would have occurred probably, I don't know, February, March. Now, that's a pretty small data set, but part of my
have
concern,
you been clamped down on, by the way?
I passed it on to conservation.
So we should
Well,
check
so
with that. Yeah, no, that's actually a good point.
And,
I mean,
if you actually rewind the clock, this property is directly in the line of sight of the property at the end of Sale Road. So there's actually 3 data points of look what they did.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, maybe it has no, maybe there's
Well,
no
it is. I mean, I
correlation.
think the reason why they do it is they want a better view.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, but no, that's a good point. That's a good point. So we ought to maybe look at do we have copies of the remediation plan? Have we
I
gotten
do,
them?
and one thing I'll ask, I know, usually when you do a restoration project or any kind of mitigation for conservation, they look for a 2-to-1 replacement value. So 2-to-1 ratio, as in 2 times more than what you remove. Now, a tree, or a couple of rhododendrons compensating for 1 lost tree. I don't know if that's what they do here. I will find out from Jennifer.
And I would tell you that, having been by there before it was cut, I think a portion of those trees were, as you described, pretty damaged and pretty rough shape. But I would guess that at least half of them were very healthy, large, mature trees. So they all came down.
Right, right. And I don't know why people do that, but they do, unfortunately.
Well, and when they were here, it was, gee, we don't know. We didn't know.
Yeah.
It's true, I mean, if they can, we've talked about this many times, we talked about this with sending out the watershed notice to people, but we know that if they clear it out, that they're not gonna have to replant it, and,
But
the views, they open up their views, so.
But when you say that we know they're not going to have to, why is that? I mean, why?
You can't put a 60-foot tree,
No, but
replant
you
it.
can put a planting that will grow into a
Sure,
60-foot tree.
but they'll put in 20 years, then they'll block the view again, but they'll get 20 years of views. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
do it again start all over again and come down again.
Yeah, I mean, partly some of the notion, like the guy, I believe when being firm, not being punitive, because that implies an unfairness, but I think you should be firm and you should lean on these people who do that, because some of it clearly is deliberate. I mean, but at some point, we're not the Spanish Inquisition either, so that's,
Correct.
I mean,
And I'm not suggesting otherwise.
Yeah.
Or at least I'm not
Yeah.
trying to.
I mean, because I have heard of cases where people have done de minimis things and they've gotten beaten on horribly, and that seems a little bit unfair too.
Right.
So, it's maintaining a sense of balance, I think, that's important here. So, but that's good. I think your point's well taken. So good. Thank you for introducing that. We sometimes forget in our hurry. So, minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 5th and the May 19th meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, and the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Excellent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.